Look what you did, you little jerk!
Welcome, jerk faces, to a little bit of a late night impromptu podcast. I have my good friend Kim here,
Hello.
who's coming in from India and actually going to India tomorrow as of this filming. So we had a very small window in which to record and really hear about her story. I've known Kim for a good number, probably about like the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been like an older sister to me, someone I go to in times of trouble when I'm going through stuff, and very caring. Yeah, very caring. Very like she's a great older sister, and so she's here to tell us her story of her testimony, what she's doing, what's going on in India, like in all sorts of fun stuff. So. Here we go.
This is my first time.
Yeah, so
this is my first time meeting her. So
yeah, Andy's first time meeting her.
Yeah.
Kim's here for the first time, and who knows? Maybe we'll have to do something in India if we get bigger. So let's start it off. I guess really is share your testimony. Like how did you become a Christian in the first place?
Okay. Okay, just let me know if I need to talk louder. Okay.
I would suggest it anyways. Just
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm pretty soft spoken also. So right now I feel like I'm screaming, even though I know I'm not. But because just normally I would actually be talking pretty soft as well. So I'm right now being very aware of how loud I'm speaking. So
just be audible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to be as audible as I should be. Okay, so my name is Kim Leivon. I'm the eldest of 4 children. I look over there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Into the camera. I know it's kind of distracting, but it's just so.
Right. My parents are missionaries. I am a 3rd generation Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up around Christianity was not weird for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hit my teens, I think I faced some kind of crisis, like a faith crisis, identity crisis.
Right.
But I technically accepted the Lord or became born again when I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But my understanding of the gospel was very Sunday school, about God and everything. It was fine, everything from the outside down. I think with what happened later on in life, especially starting from my teens, things began to change. About how I saw God and people, and that led me on a quest to get to know God for myself, not just because I am born into a Christian family. So if you ask me how I became a Christian, that's part of the story. But then I turned to atheism when I was in high school, and I was an atheist for like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not very long.
Not very long, no.
Okay.
It was short, but that was my time of searching. And it was in college, towards the end of college, that I realized that God is real, that He loves me. I have value as a person. Okay, so my faith became very personal. It was not just like, okay, because
Right, it wasn't just because of your parents, but you made it your own.
Yes, I came to know God for myself. Like I really wanted a relationship instead of just being, forced on me.
Right.
I think like a lot of people kind of go through that, like they grow up in the church where it's like they go to church because they're forced to, and it's like yeah, I'm a Christian, but then there does come that point where it's like you have to actually you have to be the one that's making that choice.
Right.
Yep.
The training wheels have to come off sometimes. And so
I wasn't forced, but that was the only world I knew.
Yeah, right.
So
I'll admit it, I was forced. My mom made my mom made me go all the time, like even though I didn't want to.
So you're saying you're like a 3rd generation Christian, and now here in the United States, obviously it's we. For better or worse, and people may not want to believe this, but our country is kind of founded on Judeo-Christian values. So being a Christian in America, in the United States, is not far-fetched. But obviously, like you coming from India, do you know like a little bit about the history of how like your family like became a Christian?
Yes. Okay. So first I'm gonna have to answer that question by first telling you a little bit about where I come from. I come from Manipur. That's a state in the northeastern part of India. It's part of the Seven Sisters. They call it the Seven Sisters. That it's comprised of 7 states. They're very different from the rest of India.
Okay.
So I am a Naga. We are tribal people, and therefore I look different, and we are different from the rest of the Indians, as you know. My grandparents at the time, they were very young. Village. They were living in the village, and American missionaries came, and that's how they came to know of God, the gospel, and they became Christians. But because my people are animistic, they were not open. I mean, they saw it as a threat. And my grandfather.
Could you define animistic?
Spirit worship.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew because.
Oh, spirit worship. Worship nature.
For the audience.
For the audience. I mean, I knew what you're talking about. I'm with it.
Okay, my people are originally headhunters.
Oh.
We don't do that anymore because of Christianity, but that was that was how.
So that was part of like I guess your people's like tradition or culture.
Who we are as people, yes.
Yeah. Okay. But enter missionaries and
yes,
kind of dropped that bit.
Okay. That changed after the missionaries came, and my grandparents, because they converted, they were banished from their villages.
Oh, okay. So you're because you're third generation. So Christianity for you hasn't, or for I guess your people hasn't been around for very long.
Well, it has in a way, like for the past couple of 100 years.
Right. But maybe specifically your village or like.
Specifically my village.
Okay.
That particular area, but of course compared to America, it's very recent for our people.
Yeah, no, because I'm learning. I'm actually learning like stuff for the first time about you too. So this is the funny thing about this.
Do you get to know anybody, Robert?
I apparently know nothing about anybody.
I know you're mad because you're like, oh man, when it was my turn, I was like, oh, I didn't know about that. Or,
well, it's one of those.
Even with Joel, you're surprised.
Well, it's one of those things where you get to know people, and it's like I personally like. Not that I don't care, but like it's more like someone's background is like that's their background. If they want to talk about it, they want.
It's just not.
Yeah, like, it's not like something
who you know them as is not so much as important because you understand that they have a past and like it informed them to the point like to who they are now.
Exactly.
So like the backstory isn't necessary, but it's nice. It's a nice thing to know, but ultimately not. Again, necessary.
Yeah. Well, this podcast awards us a structured environment where it's like we're asking. It's like, well, yeah, you know what? I don't know that about you. Let's ask. And yeah, like I didn't, I don't really know that much about your part of India and its history and because it is different from we're so used to like Delhi and all those places in India and that's completely different from where you you're from. I guess the other thing that I would want to ask too is well, obviously you're here in the United States and you've been around a lot of different places, but specifically why did you come to the United States? Because you do have you have your family who's Christian and all that and your area there, but what made you come out here?
Okay, I came here to study, but I could have studied anywhere else, but this is where I say this is where the Lord took me, this is where he brought me, and this is my second time here in the U.S. My second time studying. So, the first time was also for the same reason, to study. But especially this time around, I came to study counseling.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that to me earlier.
So can you tell I'm trying to keep up with them, whatever. Okay, so
you're
you're doing fine.
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
She was very nervous to be on the podcast, but also very willing to talk about her story. So we're gonna give her a little bit of leeway and not make fun of her like we would do with the rest of the guests.
Kid gloves. And also, you're actually the first woman to be on.
We forgot to mention that. So we've been trying to get a female on here for a while, and you're the first one that's like, yeah, I'll do it.
So maybe there were other females who were not willing.
They weren't willing. Yeah, we've asked.
And on our live stream, I always threaten that I'm gonna replace Rob with a hot chick.
With a hot chick.
Yeah. We do. They know, but we do a weekly live stream, and Rob, co-hosts with me, and in the last couple of weeks, I've been not too happy with his performance.
Because
because he's late, or it makes things hard for me, and so just being a prima donna. So I have to threaten. It's like, dude, I'm gonna replace you.
Well,
with
after
hot
20
chick.
episodes, I need my star time. I'm not getting it.
Whatever, dude. You get more FaceTime than I do.
That's true.
Yeah, especially because I'm transitioning over to because I have it set up so I could do us together or him by himself or me by myself, especially if we go on these long kind of monologues. Then because then it's it also frees me up to go to the bathroom or whatever.
that is true.
Trade secrets, y'all. Yeah, so it's kind of like a gag, it's like, I'm gonna replace you with a hot chick, because you're giving me grief, and it'll boost our viewership, but
it would totally would. So we're very thankful.
Yes.
We're very thankful you came on to tell us your story. So I'm sorry we kind of interrupted you there. So we'll let you.
Nice distraction.
And all right, easing you into it, right?
Yes.
No, but feel free. There's no judgment here, except for them. Just kidding.
So you came here to this time
study
specifically
counseling.
to study counseling. Why what about counseling? What do you want to do with that exactly?
Okay, firstly, I think it's because of things I've experienced in life. So I've always had an interest, but I never really considered studying it because I felt like there was too much crap in my life that I first needed to deal with myself. But studying counseling has actually helped me to go forward with a lot of things. But anyway, the primary reason why I studied counseling is so that I can help other people, because you come to a point where you realize, okay, you can be so self-focused on what you've gone through, pain and hurt, whatever, but then you realize there are many more people and they need help. And especially when you get to a point where you've sufficiently healed or moved forward in life, and you see others who need that help but do not know how to, that's what I began to have a heart for, and thus went to study counseling.
I mean, okay, well, without getting too into, depending on your level of comfort, what were some of the things that you felt were hindering you from becoming a counselor?
What were some of the things? Okay, firstly, I felt like, I can't do it. I don't think
So it was just was it more like a general sense of insecurity?
I wouldn't say insecurity is the right word, or it could be, but it was more of self-doubt. Well, I knew that I would be able to empathize better, but I also felt very ill-equipped. You know how they say it's like the blind leading the blind?
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like that for a while, but especially in the past 7 years, the way I think, my attitude regarding that about myself has changed, which is probably why I'm able to study this.
Okay.
And yeah, because I would agree with that too, because there's been a lot of times where, because I do a lot with like youth kids and all that, and like, you know, counseling is kind of like a part of that as well. And it's one of those things where I kind of feel like I'm not good at this, like I don't know like what to do really. But I think well, especially like, you know, when it comes to like young people, it's like I see a lot of like where like their thought process is, or like what they're going through in a sense, because I've lived that, and being able to speak into that is like, well, I've, you know, experiential stuff where it's like, yeah, I still have a lot of like issues, and I'm not really like good enough, but I have these experiences that I've, you know, God or like whatever has allowed me to like go through, and now I can like share and, you know, give the wisdom that I have, and I assume it's going to be the same for you as well, where it's like you've gone through all these things, and it's not just for nothing. It's like so that when you do like counsels, like you'll see like, hey, that person's going through something that, you know, I went through a similar situation. Let's see if I can like kind of, you know, reach them in a way like I know what the words would be to like help kind of you know, get in there and like, you know, make a difference. Not necessarily, you know, to like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, Kim did it. Like it's not about that. It's just, but getting people the help that they need, and, you know, if like, you know, they never like thank me or like, you know, thank you. It's like that's not the point. It's just more like, you know, making sure that they become help put the pieces back together.
Exactly.
You know, the other thing too is, you know, that I'm always like concerned about, and it's not necessarily a popular opinion, is you know, when you know, people I think of like, you know, counseling, it's like, oh, you gotta share all your like, you know, dive into all these like dark secrets and stuff like that, and in a lot of ways, like, you know, either like pumping medication into somebody, or you know, they just kind of go through like this therapy that just never ends. Obviously, I'm assuming that's not like what you're going for, like.
No.
I mean,
that idea is actually a misconception of counseling.
Yeah, and that's what I was hoping that you would want to like share a little bit about that, if you like what you think like, you know, counseling is for, and like what you're hoping to accomplish.
Okay.
If you know, I don't know.
I do have an idea of.
What are your plans for the next 5 years?
I know, right? It's like a job interview.
Yeah, it sounds. That's why I felt like I was going to be like interrogated. No, but so okay, let me get my thoughts in order.
Take your time.
So people think, okay, counseling. Okay, Christian counseling or what I studied was very different from maybe what other places offered, the kind of program that they offered. So mine was a combination of what we call the Christian and the liberal classes. So I got to learn from both sides, see both sides, understand how people think on both sides.
So I got Freud and Jesus.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. So
Freudian Jesus.
Yeah, Freudian Jesus.
Because
Freudian Jesus.
that's a nice one. I didn't think of that. So
that's what we do on this podcast. Him and I are both like, we're like wordplay masters. So
word savvy, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything that we do on this channel is a wordplay.
Yes.
So
It is.
every title of like each of the shows, it's all wordplay. Sorry, I just.
And therefore the quizzical look on my face.
Continue.
Okay, so where was I? Yeah.
Freudian Jesus.
Yes. Okay, so people think counseling, you go talk about your problems. Yes, you do that, but obviously you're working towards a solution. You
Right.
want to be healed. You want to get better. So the whole idea of like endless sessions talking to the therapist or counselor, that's not what I'm gonna do, and that's not what this is. So therapy, professional therapists, what they do is very different from what I'll be doing, because I'm actually going to be giving advice, not just listening to people. So because usually how therapists work, at least to my understanding, because when you talk about counseling and therapy, I feel like I've only just touched the tip of the iceberg. But from what I understand, it is that therapists can't really tell you, the person with the problem, to do what you have to do. They kind of just guide you.
Mm-hmm.
But counseling, Christian counselors, we are in a position where we can tell you, like, hey, you know, this is what I think you can do. And I don't want to waste my time listening to people talk endlessly about their problems. I can listen, but I want to be able to be proactive in helping them.
Right, because
not
you
just
want them to
listen.
get to like resolution or closure.
Yeah, from A to B to Z, you know.
Exactly.
So.
You want to get to the point where you never see them again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point of
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's the point
That's the
of
point.
therapy. It's like
Yeah.
I like the whole point of therapy is like so I don't ever have to see you again professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you go to a doctor. I mean, if I were a doctor, I wouldn't want to see you with the same problem. I want you to be, you know, fine.
Yeah, like you get like some mysterious. Like if I went to a doctor and I constantly came in for like elbow pain, and it's like don't you get other illnesses? You know,
Yeah, it's
so
like-
it's like dealing with the same kind of.
It's like maybe you should go to a different doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I worked as a youth pastor, and I've worked in church in full-time ministry. So, I have a burden, or I would say I have a heart for young people, for all people in general, but especially for young people. Maybe because of what I've gone through personally, I feel like older people. This is not to judge or condemn older people, but there
It's
is
okay if
this
you do.
thing. It's
Don't
okay
trust
for
anyone
Andy.
over-
It's okay for Andy, but I
As
have
a
to be
Simpson-
very careful with what I say. So.
Well, Bart Simpson tells us never trust anyone over 30, but that's all of us here, so.
There's no one here.
So don't trust us. Anyway.
Don't trust me. So, older people tend to think like maybe it's just previous generations, but get over it. You know, like get up and you'll be fine. But there are people who actually need help.
Right.
They can't just get up and be okay. And especially if you've struggled with depression or know people who have struggled with depression, for example, you will know that this is not just something you can tell yourself, like, get over it, you know. People that need help. So that is my intention, to be able to help people. But I'm also like the kind of person who will not mind telling you, like, okay, this is enough, you need to get snap out of this. I can be pretty harsh sometimes, but that's why I don't want to be like typical therapist, like just listening and like, oh, okay, you know, like maybe.
Yeah, because sometimes you need to, you got to interject that tough love.
Exactly.
Because it's all fun. It's fine and good to listen to someone's problems and just it. Because sometimes I think people have this idea that therapy is just like a confessional booth. I mean, it can be, but it shouldn't ultimately be only that.
That's only part of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the confessional part is just one small bit of the therapy. It's so I think that confessional bit is for you to identify the problem or to identify the, I guess, trigger point of like of some problem that they can then work on.
The root, yeah.
Yeah.
Get to the root so that they can actually get to the actual problem and then work towards a solution. Yeah.
Now, do you specifically want to like work with like youth?
Preferably, yes. But at this point, I'm waiting and praying.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly good thing to
Right,
do.
I know. It's
Especially
like-
when you're clueless about like well, I know what I want to do, but I also need to be very sure about what I'm gonna get into, because I don't want to waste my time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because nowadays especially in America, everything is such like a go go go. Like if you're not moving, you're dead kind of mentality.
Yeah. Okay.
And but sometimes to use airplane terminology, sometimes being in a holding pattern isn't a bad thing.
No, it's not.
And also I mean, it might seem like hokey or kind of, pop culture pop culture psychology, but a great line from this TV show Battlestar Galactica was, it's like, just because you don't know your direction doesn't mean you don't have one.
What does?
And I think like a lot of
that show just keeps like bringing like,
I know, right?
deep like
my friends, like every time I tell them, oh man, Battlestar Galactica last night was so good, they would like kind of like roll their eyes at me. It's like, no, I swear it's good. You know,
it's not just for nerds.
yeah, it's not. It's a very compelling, drama. I swear.
Life philosophy.
Yeah. And so, just because you don't know your particular direction doesn't mean you don't have one. And sometimes, just like kind of waiting at the fork, waiting at the fork isn't a bad thing.
It's
just kind of like decide, kind of like waiting there and deciding which way you're gonna go. Because like, what if like, there's like that I don't know about classic example or story of like there's a fork in the road and like, one leads to a volcano, the other one leads to like a nice
forest,
like nice like meadow, whatever,
okay.
like idyllic spring. And like initially they looked exactly the same, and so there's how do you make a decision? And maybe you just just wait a little bit, and maybe a gust of wind will come and it'll reveal like the glow of like the lava or something. And it's like, oh, not that way. Yeah, not that way. So you go.
The glow of the lava. That's nice. I've never really heard it worded that way. Questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, your family runs a church in India.
They run a hospital, but they helped found a church.
They helped found a church. Okay. I'm still like learning about like all that. Okay.
Yeah.
So your parents are doctors, or like it's just like your dad or your mom?
My father is a surgeon. My mother is the administrator, but she was originally a teacher, a professional. Yeah, so she helps in the administration of the hospital.
Okay. How big? Like how? Nah, I mean it's kind of weird to ask. Like how big is like the church that you have out there?
Okay, we're 7 years old now, and if you think like in terms of growth, like if you're the kind of person you want like growth like very quickly, no, this is not the kind of church. We prefer quality over quantity. Right. And so we started with like 5 or 6 families.
Okay. So it was like kind of like the early church where it was just like small, small groups of families, and then eventually grew.
Like in the past 2 years that I've been away from home, there have been actually a lot more people now. Okay. So I can't really say about the numbers, but judging from the pictures, I mean, there are a lot more people.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because on our live stream, me and Robert are always talking about it, like how, we would like that, we would like this, podcast to be successful, but it's kind of hollow, if we, have like this immediate like success, because we would definitely like this podcast to have longevity, and so like we're building it slowly, and with every like subscriber that we get, and we don't get like the huge subscriber dumps where we have like this huge amount of subscribers like every video or whatever, but every subscriber that we do, and right now it's like a drop, like they're coming in drops at a time, drop. It's not a stream. But I think we're okay with that because we're trying to build something that'll last, and that that'll continue long after whatever, like we get too old to do this, and we're able to like hire people, and then they could take over and whatever.
Yeah.
And so
and also again, you want to be able to look back and know that you have put in good instead of just being concerned about producing something that will gain a lot of viewers, but in the
Right.
future
Yeah. Because I
will
mean,
not
we
be
could
powerful.
do just like the clickbaity stuff and talk about the latest like YouTube drama, or just like make a video saying how much we hate Trump, or
But which you don't. But.
I mean, I don't hate the man. I want him to do good. He's the president. He's the lawfully elected president. If he does good, America does good.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I care about.
Yeah.
I support him where I can and criticize him when he's wrong.
But
That's good. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, it's just that idea of, and I really do buy into that like thing with church too, because a lot of times it's everyone's worried about the numbers. Well, it's like the numbers aren't necessarily important. Like if everyone there is just spiritually dead and like they have no direction, like they have no point of being there, just other than just to be somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so like like I said, that quality growth, like once people have like you help raise people up in spiritual maturity, it helps, that alone helps spawn growth.
Yes.
Because people want to have something where whenever like your family ends up like just they pass on or whatever, it's like they don't, it's like, or something happens and like you have to like kind of step away from that church. That church shouldn't die. It's like it should just be able to move forward.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a problem with like a lot of and I don't know about like the rest of the world, but definitely like in the United States where it's very pastor driven. It's like, oh, that guy left, I'm out of here. And it's not about like the actual community. It's just it's about one person, which is
Like
ridiculous.
the wrong focus,
And it's not, it's not even the right person. If it was like if it was focused on Jesus, then it's like no worries. But it's focused on like, and that's not necessarily like the pastor's fault. Like some guys are like they're very spiritually mature, like they're trying to foster growth. But sometimes people kind of like glob onto that, and it's like once that person's gone, it's like they're lost.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't become Christianity. It's just a cult of personality.
Right.
And so
yeah. But and that's also kind of like what we want for like this, like Andy was saying, for this channel too, is just to things like this, being able to share people's stories of their trials, triumphs, all that, along with like just being able to share in a world that we live in nowadays. There's not a whole lot of like joy or laughter. It's all about like F Trump and like
so much
and so much like we have to like as we were watching like yesterday, a lot of like videos about like what's kind of going on in the world, just the kind of the crazy thoughts and ideas and places that people are going, because they have no like anchor or like foundation to build on. So it's just like it's anything goes, and everyone's kind of these sailboats caught in like the ocean with no wind. They're just kind of they're stuck in the middle of nowhere. So so what we've kind of been trying to do is just kind of like foster this kind of like being able to share the fun that we have with one another, share some laughs, share some like good inspiring stories, and overall like doing that is just have a good time and do something different that way. And we don't necessarily have the like I said, the clickbait stuff or like the things that would give if we did that stuff, we'd probably have like a bunch of subscribers already. It's like, oh, let's see what they have to say. It's like, but that's not what we want to do. And I really think that like it just like the church too, it's just we don't, it's not about like getting all the numbers like right up front. It's like, let's build that like good solid foundation. Let's build that maturity, and from there on, like we'll have that good like solid base to build off of.
Yes.
And if things end up like collapsing to a point, there will always be that solid base to build off of. So like going into back to your family's church, and like well, first of all, I would ask like what exactly is the mission that you have for your church, And like, have you had a lot of difficulty in like being able to reach people in your area?
Okay. We founded this church primarily because our place, as I mentioned earlier, we are tribal people and
Nomadic.
no, not nomadic, just tribal.
Oh,
We were nomadic long ago,
right.
but we are settled in that area now.
Oh, okay.
So nomadic no more.
Okay.
But so we are called the Nagas, and under this umbrella of the Nagas, there are many different tribes. They all have their own dialects and there are similarities, but there are also a lot of differences. Like one of the things is the languages, and so there are many people who intermarry, and then that's where the struggle is, because they can't go to either like the churches are also how would I say, based on their tribe, you know. So if I go to my church, they would speak in my dialect, but if I went to my husband's church, they would speak in his dialect. So that's where the conflict would be, because then their children wouldn't know. The children grew up without understanding either dialects too well. So our church is one of the few English-speaking churches in the area, and that was one of the reasons. I mean, not just because we want English services, but a place where people could go to.
Right, because then like the dialect thing would be not the issue.
Not the issue.
Because everyone would just be speaking English.
So they can just come and worship. Yeah,
that's interesting, because I knew this girl in high school. She was Korean and some kind of Hispanic.
Okay.
And I think her parents were missionaries also. And her her oldest sister, they taught her 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Korean.
Okay.
And
that's cool.
it was pretty cool. And then I think, when they came back from whatever mission field they were at, and then they put her sister into school, she would speak all 3 languages simultaneously.
Okay.
So she was like start in English, middle would be Spanish, and end in Korean.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and so they had a parent-teacher conference, like, hey, your kid's speaking in 3 different languages. I was like, oh shoot. So after her sister, I think she had a brother, and then her, they just only taught English to just to keep from that. And you just sharing that story about the dialects kind of reminded me of that, and just it also that's actually a really good way of would be a good way of unifying disparate or dissimilar tribes, because then they're both working towards the common goal of learning English so that they can go to this church, and so it might be a way to bridge gaps, or like maybe
a unifying factor.
Than as opposed to like, oh, you speak kind of like in America, there's different dialects. Some people say soda, others say pop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as I'm sure people in the Midwest aren't going to war, against their neighbor for using the wrong word. But
I was.
No. But yeah, but having that common goal of learning English, and then having that common language, I'm sure would be a good way to build bridges and to bring people together, as opposed to dividing them.
There's something very organic in it, because the people who attend a church, they are from different tribes, but because we all speak in English, we don't have that barrier.
Right.
The language barrier, which can be, I mean, we love each other, we're all Nagas, but sometimes the whole tribal factor thing is we call it tribalism. It gets really bad, and if any of my Naga friends ever see this, I still love you. So, just saying.
Right, it's all love here. All love here. It's all.
Yeah. Like, are there any as far as like spiritual or like cultural barriers that you found like as you've reached out to people, like sharing the gospel and stuff like that, like, and because you're in a different part of like India, like I think a lot of people associate like, oh, India, that means like everyone's Hindu, or but like but I'm assuming that it's much more complicated than that as well,
and quite different.
And
it's kind of
so
it's kind of like in China. There's like over like 200 different ethnic minority or ethnic groups within China. And most people think Chinese, and it's like they have a very specific idea of what what a Chinese person is, but then
it's different in reality.
So like what my question is, like what are like the spiritual and like cultural hindrances that you've found in like sharing the gospel, like what in as your time in being there?
Okay. Even though I'm originally from Manipur, my family will live in the neighboring state Nagaland. And okay, this is the thing. When the British came and colonized India, they put different parts together to make up what we know today as the, in India, the present India. And they left without, they left it like that.
Yeah.
So we changed to Mother India, for now. But that's another story too, but actually it's sensitive. Okay, so
let's just keep it simple. Let's just keep it localized.
Not too intense. Right.
Maybe next time we'll do it the whole like
breakdown
break it down
of India.
So the rest of India is actually pretty hard to reach with the gospel because of Hinduism and all the different like Zoroastrianism, Jainism, Buddhism.
Did you say Jainism?
Jainism.
Jain.
Okay. Okay. So, and there's also Islam.
Right.
But my people have been, they were very receptive to the gospel, a lot of them. So we are in many ways very Christianized. And we are one of the few Christian states in India. We have a very high, what do you say, probably about 90% plus Christians in our state. And ironically, we are also among the top 5 most corrupt states in India. That says a lot about our Christianity though, and that's where that would give you an idea about like the kind of Christianity that has developed over the years. Not developed, but that's how it's been.
I know. It's a pretty right. You live in the most Christian part of the country, but then also the most corrupt. But
one of the most corrupt.
Yeah. Would you say that? I mean, it happens to everybody. But would you say that some of the culture has colored the Christianity there, or?
I think it happens everywhere. Like I'm going to try to answer both your questions with this. It's still okay. Like for example, the tribalism. Christianity has it's very alive in our place, but the whole, if we're talking about the culture, it would be best displayed in this whole tribalism thing. If you came and tried to talk to our people about God, the Christian faith, there wouldn't be much opposition. But that's the problem. Like they would be like, okay, like.
It was basically preaching to the choir.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
But I think the problem is with the previous generations who were really Christian, and they did not pass down the faith to the children in a way that the children could actually have it as your own.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of, I mean, in America, it's kind of similar to, I guess, the cultural breakdown that we're kind of experiencing.
Okay.
Because, like the baby boomer generation, like, they had like, they are the first ones to like live pretty well in America, not really, they had like, they didn't really, want for anything. But then with that, they didn't necessarily, what was it? They didn't really pass on like the valuable lessons like their
Yeah.
parents gave them, because they just like, you know, when they had kids, they just like, you know, like, oh, do whatever you want, here's some money, you know, just get out of my hair.
Yeah.
And so
It's similar.
it's so it's, well, at least like what you were saying, I'm kind of getting that sense where like, you know, and that's kind of what happens with like a lot of people, because, you know, whatever you know, if your parent, I guess if the parents don't do a good job passing down the good parts of what they, you know, what they grew up with or what they were taught, then it's not going to show up in the children.
Yep.
That was the problem in the Old
That's
Testament
right.
too, like with all the Israelites, is just that cycle of like, you know, they would
Yeah.
they would
Yeah.
you know, you have that like
Sure.
first couple of generations, things are good. They wouldn't really pass it down, and like that like third or fourth generation, it's like right back into idol
Yeah.
worship, and it's like that whole cycle
and
just
over
keeps
again.
going
It's
on
cyclical,
and on.
Yeah.
When are you going to learn?
Yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
asks,
And, you know, the other thing too that and you know, over the, you know, the course of like just church history in general is there's always, you know, the gospel and like, you know, Christianity, like, you know, you know, the core beliefs and, you know, the message of Christianity is very powerful. And I think sometimes where, you know, everyone's like kind of trying to find that like loophole, like, and, you know, still do what they're wanting to do, yet like try to see like how can I like stuff this under like the guise of like Christianity. And so they tend to abuse like the, you know, power that's given to them, and in your case, you know, governing like your area, and or like I said, you know, like you have like all the like stuff from church history of people doing the same thing, which sucks because it's like it's a really horrible testimony to Christianity. And then people like, and why that is it because people mistake like, oh, is that what Christians believe? Psh, I don't want to be a part of that. And so it's like, no, that's not the message. Like, these people, like, they messed up. Like, that's not what this is saying. That like, you know, just because like one or a few people do it this way, it's like you actually like it's a bad testimony. Like, the message doesn't lie on them like messing up. Like the message lies on like this one strong foundation, which is Christ, and like the actual like what's actually being said in you know, God's word. It's not about you know, the unfortunate actions and like decisions that's, you know, a select few make. But it's unfortunate because that's all that people see. Because they're not going to dig deeper after they say, well, that guy is kind of, you know, forget that. I'm not going to be a part of that, and so they, you know, go off into another direction.
I think human nature also just has a tendency to look at people rather than God. They would rather just find something to criticize and judge, and like, okay, you know, and also excuse themselves in the process.
Yeah, kind of give them like kind of give them that space to be like, oh, well, you know, that guy did it, so it should be okay for me too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
No, you know, something else that I'm also curious about too, and you know, just because you know, kind of the difference between the United States and like, you know, being in India, you know, I find a lot of times that there's a very individualistic and side to like Christianity, where it's like, well, who cares like what they're doing? Like, it's all about like you're focused on yourself, like your own faith.
Like, it's between me and God.
Yeah, exactly. So that, you know, there's that aspect, and there's also like the very like, you know, the compartmentalization of like where it's like, you know, they're at church like on like a Sunday, but then the rest of their week, like, you would never know that they went to church.
They'd be very worldly lives.
Yeah, is there something similar to that, like where you're from, or is it you know,
It's
is
similar.
It's very similar
It's
actually.
similar, yes. I think their faith is not authentic, just like it is here. It's very similar there. And the funny thing about my people is that in many ways we're very westernized, not just Christianized, we're also very westernized. So if you come visit where I live, you'd be surprised like how like fashionable, when you talk about fashion, how people are like so fashionable. It's like you see something in Vogue today and you will see somebody wearing, I mean, one of the young girls wearing something like that next day. Yeah, we're very westernized. But instead of just you know, taking the good things, we've also taken a lot of the bad. Like, we're copycats. And I don't like that. Our faith is not authentic, but recently, I mean, in the recent years, there has been some change. Like people, like the younger generation, there has been this yearning for something really genuine. You know, when you talk about the Christian faith, young people are really beginning to look, because just like how I went through that, I don't want something that's just like passed down to me. You know, like the Christian faith, even though it was okay for a while, I did, you know, that's all I knew. But then I realized, like, okay, there's this world and there's all these conflicting beliefs, and what do I believe? What do I want? You know, so there are young people today going through that more than ever. And so there's been this movement where people want to see genuine faith. They want to have genuine faith. But so it's going to move in a positive direction, I believe. But that's a problem where, like, then this whole thing becomes so sensationalized, like you in the search for something genuine, that I believe, like, a lot of people, if you're talking about the Christian faith in particular, they're beginning to fall into the trap of like looking for a certain criteria instead of looking at the word, you know, like how it should be. Numbers, presentation. I mean, those are things that don't really matter in the end, and they don't. So instead of looking at the foundation, like you pointed out, so our people are very good, kind, generous kind of people. We're very hospitable. There are lots of things good about us, but we're also very hypocritical. A lot of duplicity. So actually, that makes me really sad just thinking about it. Because I don't want that.
We're not trying to bum you out. We're not trying to bum you out.
It's getting too intense though. Okay. No,
we're not trying to bum you.
Just being honest.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that I can contribute towards changing that a little bit when I get back into full-time ministry. So.
Yeah, that's I'm kind of like it's interesting, like it's very similar to like kind of like, you know, obviously there's gonna be differences, but how, you know, like what you're dealing with, like, is kind of like a lot of the same things that we're dealing with here too, where it's just kind of that idea of just kind of, you know, it's not about like actually, you know, living, you know, out your faith like day by day. A lot of times it's just more of like, oh yeah, I went to church, like I'm all good, and it's like just kind of, and everyone just kind of goes about their life, and
that's why there's so much corruption.
Yeah, exactly. It's.
But I mean, I'm sorry. Finish your.
Oh no, I'm just saying, it's like, yeah, and now I don't. That was never the point of, you know, like Judeo, you know, Christian values is, well, especially look at the Old Testament, like, you know, there was no like there was no like one day like, oh, I'm a Jew, and then like the rest of the time it's like, yeah, forget it, my identity doesn't matter, and you know, like that, it doesn't matter anymore. It's like, you know, that faith was like part of who you are. Everything that you did like had that involvement, and that's always what I believe Christianity was meant to do too. Where you know, I'm not just going to work for just and then like going to church and like doing these things. They're not separate. They're all connected in a way.
No secular or sacred, but
exactly.
One all in one in the same.
So it's very, and I always assumed that was a very like kind of American way of like looking at things. So I'm very fascinated that it's not that much different over in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be so obvious in my place among people, but because one of the differences is our people are still very family oriented. Like the whole thing about a community, we're still very strong on that. But here it's, in many ways, it's an individualistic culture.
Yeah, that's
or like it doesn't go like beyond like the immediate family. So so yours is very much like familial connections are still.
You're still very strong. That's
like, you know, aunties, uncles, cousins.
Even cousins who I still don't know, but
yeah.
Hey, that sounds like my family.
Second and third cousins.
Yeah, there's new cousins on my side of the family. Just I don't know who they are anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, my dad's family is the only one that moved to America, so
Uh-huh.
all I know is my dad's side of the family.
Okay.
But I don't so back in 2007, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
2007 when I went to Korea and I met my mom's side of the family, I was essentially meeting strangers,
Mm-hmm.
but they were still like, even though it was like the first time they were meeting me, they still showed like, they just dumped love on me.
Yeah, they were nice.
Yeah, even though it was their first time meeting me, they
Mm-hmm.
just knew like, oh, this is my sister's kid, so of course I'm just gonna just love him. And
I think it's like the cultural thing that's not to sound biased or whatever, but Asians that way we're still very
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah,
we're very
very tight on that.
very
Yeah.
heavily family oriented.
Yeah, that's something I was always, growing up, I was a little jealous about, just because, yeah, like my family is just so like, it's not that it's like fractured in a sense, but it's just like I said, very like.
But it's also,
kinda,
but it also is. Does your family not live like in like the LA area or
Mainly-
California in general?
Mainly, it's just like me, like my parents and like my grandmother, like, and that's that, and then like everyone else is like off like on one side,
No,
and then like and then there's still like parts of my family I've never met, like my grandmother's like family, like they're in the Dakotas, they're ranchers, and then like there's my grandfather's side that's all back in Hungary that I've never met, so
far off.
so it's just yeah, but and there's no real like, man, we're family, like it's my immediate family, yeah, it's like that, but the
With the
yeah.
not so
yeah, like
immediate
I'm not like super close to my cousins
your blood family, but you're not emotional family.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Like I'm much closer to like you guys,
To
or like
Eddie,
yeah, or just like my friends, just because I see them all the time, and I talk more about real things with them,
Yeah.
like, and whereas like kind of like you were saying, it's like meeting strangers almost. You don't have those same like long-term connections.
The bond. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's just like an American thing, or like just kind of like a very it's sometimes maybe a very Western thing as well, where it's just like, man, forget the family. Yeah, it's all about like kind of building up something for yourself, being independent, which has its merits.
Yes. It is,
But at the same time, like, it's kind of, I know, like, with my family, there's not like a lot of like traditions. There's nothing really like handed down or passed down, as so it's just more of like every generation you're trying to seek something new out, and like trying to find yourself.
Whoa.
I mean, and to kind of double back to what you were saying about how the younger generation are seeking more authenticity. I think I mean, just to bring a parallel to America, I think we're seeing that all over, because especially in terms of like the news media, and how more and more people are seeking alternative news sources, because it's been shown and proven time and time again that the media is no longer they have very much kind of given themselves over to like the powerful to disseminate misinformation, and so now that's why news channels like on YouTube and citizen journalists are becoming more popular, because there's an authenticity, and and these alternative media sources and the citizen journalists feel what is it? They feel like the only person that they what is it? They feel like a connection with normal people, everyday people, and so they, God, what is the word I'm looking for? They have that sense, that they only
Belonging.
or are held account to the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
People, and so that's why they try to be they try to present the facts as opposed to like editorializing news stories. They just tell them like the fact, this is what happened, these are some of the details, and you guys make the decision. And I think I think, yeah. So I think just to bring a parallel to what
Yeah.
your people are going through, and then what we're here in America are going through, and also, just in terms of like the generations, the generation that's coming up after us, it's in America at least. They're predicted to be the most conservative generation since the generation that fought in World War II. And I think it's because of like the over liberalization of our culture. Because like even like, they did a poll, and most kids the kids that are coming up after us, they're not interested in drugs, or they're not interested in tattoos and all. Because I mean, back in the day, a tattoo was the actual statement of kind of a
Rebellion.
Rebellion. And like if you got one, your mother, or at least like my mom keeps telling me that she's gonna take a cheese grater into my skin if I get a tattoo. But I mean but the kids that are coming up after us, they think of it as like, oh, tattoos, that's boring. It's like, that's not a state of, that's not, because it's so widely accepted now. It's like, oh, you have a tattoo. Yeah. And so it's like, it's accepted, so it's like, that's not a statement of rebellion. It's just boring.
Right. Well, and I think I've mentioned this to you. I don't know if we've done it on Nocturnal Transmissions or not, but like I really feel like we're at least here in America, we're living the French Revolution all over again, where it's just like kind of the anything goes, rip down the statues and history, no religion, just do whatever you want, kind of like whatever kind of feels right. And what came after that was kind of like the Victorian era, where it was just the complete opposite of that, where it's like, and I'm kind of like maybe not quite the Victorian era, but like kind of like that more conservative kind of feel to things, where it's like we're not just doing whatever feels right, but we actually care about like our neighbor and like what, and not just about the self. Because I think a lot of problems come from like that worship of the self, and like we gotta break down the altar of self in a lot of ways. And yeah, that's it's definitely tough. It's tough going through that. But that's like where people like us come in. Like we can help like train that next generation coming up to at least think differently, or something I always like I'm telling my students is it's like you gotta like figure out why you believe the things that you believe in. Like don't just say parrot something that like someone else said.
Don't say something that you think I want to hear.
Or
really
like,
think about it and wrestle with it. I mean like, what was it? Isn't that what like it's like Israel means? Like wrestling with God. So
wrestles with God.
Wrestles with God. So so it's not. So God doesn't want you to just like kind of like lay down and like accept Him. He wants you to He wants you to push back and and wrestle with Him and like figure it out and understand all the nuances.
Not just because somebody's spoon feeding it to you, but you know what
really,
you're getting into.
Really make it your own.
And I think that's the other problem too, like like with those like kind of like first generation Christians, because like they did have like that like wrestling match with God, and when it comes to the next gen, they've gone through all that. They don't want their kids or their grandkids like to deal with those same problems, so it's just like just believe, just do just trust us. Well, that's not enough. Like some people like they need more than that. Like and finding a way to like wrestle with like their faith themselves, but they're never really actually like given an arena to do that too. Like where why do we do this? Well, don't ask questions, just believe. It's like, well, no, that's not like, that's never something that God He never asked us to believe blindly. There's not only is the Bible, is there like a lot of evidence, but like even like outside of the Bible, there's a lot that points towards what we do believe in.
I mean, and it's not like the original the apostles were Bible scholars. They were just everyday people. And it's funny because I remember a long time ago when I first read not first read through. But
Well, maybe Paul's a little bit.
When
of a
I
scholar.
read through like the Gospels and like and like the apostles were like constantly going, what the heck is he talking about? And Jesus had those moments like it was like those facepalm moments where it was like, I was like, guys, come on, where he's like, he lays it out for them, but then they kind of like it's like the
they have to struggle and resist.
Yeah, it's like it's like Jesus like tossed them the ball and like it hits them, falls to the ground, and they just kind of look at it and it's like,
Whoa, I'm supposed to catch that?
And I was like what? And it's like, it's like, and she's like.
That's a good illustration.
So what are some things that we can pray for like your area, like what can we is there any way like to like help out like your church or like
what can we specific for the Basmati people?
Well, there are a lot of things, but just like here, our people have become very materialistic, and I figure that sooner or later God's gonna have to bring our people to a point where we're humbled and we know that it's not about material things. But that aside, you can pray for the younger generation. They are thirsty, they yearn for that deeper, genuine thing, but a lot of them are looking
calories anymore.
But they're also looking in the wrong places, and the problem is there are not enough older people people who are equipped.
More mentors.
No, mentors, that's the word. It's
more
like
mentors.
Yeah, that's the thing, because people are afraid to address questions or to be asked questions that these young people wrestle with. I know because I've been there. Like I've come across a lot of people like they just didn't want to answer. They didn't know how to answer my question. They'd be like, just believe, it's like you're wrong, whatever. But those are genuine questions. So you can pray for how would I say that God would raise up people who will be able to help and mentor these young people, to disciple them. But that's the first thing. Secondly, for wisdom for our people. We have, I think, just over the years, all I can think is we are very foolish. We have made a lot of decisions that are just, if you guys knew what is really going on there, how we work there, it's like we're wise is the word that would be furthest from your mind, from your mind. So pray that there would be wisdom. I think
maybe discernment also.
Wisdom and discernment, yes, they go together. And for the leadership, these three. Our leadership sucks.
Some might argue that American leadership sucks right now. But.
Well, I would say that ours is worse.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I know that you were really nervous about kind of talking about stuff, and
I did it without a paper bag over my head.
Yeah, I would not let her put a paper bag over her head.
Did amazingly. Amazing.
Yeah, no, we literally had a very, very narrow window to actually get this done. Be appreciative. Actually, that's like we're kind of a very intimate group tonight. The rest of the guys aren't able to be here because this is being done kind of late at night. So like I said, very narrow window. So thankful that we were able to get you on before you head back to India. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah. And that is the end of the podcast. But to do a few quick plugins, if you want to see more content, we have other episodes. We had our great friend Joel on the last time on this podcast. So if you haven't seen that yet, it's already uploaded. It's ready to. There's small clips, or if you want to watch the whole thing, it's up there. If you want to join in on a conversation between me and Andy and or other guests, come join us Tuesdays at 8. And join the chat. Come online and. Have fun with us. And for you gamers out there, Up by Up Down, it comes out every Thursday. We just finished our playthrough of Metroid, and we started a new one of the Famicom Super Mario 3. So that's the Japanese version, which is similar but very different, much more difficult. And we might have a special little surprise for Thanksgiving, so stay tuned.
And Robert swears a lot.
Yeah. So we thank you guys for watching, and yeah, we genuinely thank you guys. This stuff wouldn't happen without you guys. Definitely would not happen without Andy.
Oh, yeah.
Andy's the heart and soul of the podcast.
Damn
And,
straight.
if you want to also hit us up on our social medias, we have on Twitter, Podcast COJ. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at RoboRice. Our Instagram is the Circle of Jerks podcast. Andy kind of deals with all that, with the fun pictures and all that fun stuff. So hit us up on those social media platforms, and we will see you guys next time.
I'm a jerk now. It's official.
Oh, perfect ending.
Oh, yes.
Perfect ending. Perfect.
See you guys next time.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. No.